Well done.
It's a good box, just then.
We tried that all year, it doesn't work.
Thank you very much. I think I've got a few things to say. First of all, I'd like to say a huge thank you to Kaz. You know, when we started out on this journey, it's quite a while ago. There is just a little bit of a story to it, in that it is probably something like 20 years since we last got any funding from the Heritage Lottery Fund, or National Lottery Heritage Fund as it now is. And we'd felt quite frustrated about that, and we'd applied for various grants along the way, and always there was this deal to be done which said the lottery will give you a certain amount of money, and in return we have to do something to help the lottery achieve their objectives. And often the balance of that didn't feel quite right. We couldn't quite get it right. And often we thought, well, the deal was we'd get something physical from a lottery fund, like a building restored or a carriage or an engine or something, and in return we would share training and skills with people. This scheme, the Skills for the Future scheme, was completely different, because there are no capital elements to it, there are no buildings, no engines, there's nothing like that in this scheme. It's all about us sharing our skills with people. And you know, when we first looked at that scheme, we thought, well, what's in it for us? Just at face value, what's in it for us? And then when we thought about it some more, we realised that the biggest challenge that we face is not our buildings or our engines, carriages, track or whatever. It's none of that. It's our people. And people with skills to look after the railway. Because if we haven't got any people, we haven't got a railway. And that sort of came into fairly sharp focus. Now, then we found ourselves applying for a Heritage Lottery Fund grant, which was all about training and teaching people and so on. And you think, well, how well equipped are we to apply for this grant? You look at the forms and you try and put the words in the right shape, and it's very difficult indeed to say the right things. We knew what we wanted to do, but trying to get that message across was particularly difficult. Fortunately, in that process, Kaz came to the fore to help us, as did another lady who can't be here today, a lady called Natasha George, who helped us filling in those forms. And we managed to get through the first round of our application, which amazed us really that we actually got through. And then we spent several months doing this development work to be able to get the money to do this project. And Kaz and Natasha worked very hard on that, and I must admit I was pulling my hair out at times because I just didn't speak that language that was needed for these forms. And so having Kaz and Natasha there to do that was great. And we were rewarded for their input by the award of this project. It's an award of something like £440,000. There's a lot of money that has gone into this project. And you know, even when we won it, and I know I sat in this room and told the company board that we'd won the Skills for the Future grant, and that you know the first 10 trainees would be with us in 6 months' time, I could still see that they were still really trying to understand what was this actually about. Even now, I think the board would not be quite certain, but fortunately we now have that wonderful video to share with them, which I will at our next board meeting, so that they can understand the importance of what's been happening. And I think the transformation has been just amazing, and it started in the first week of this project, because by the end of the first week, which is when I met Sam underneath the canopy at Lion Station, who's this? Ben was there as well, and I could sense an excitement amongst our staff, because they were working with some young, enthusiastic people who were keen to do something. So you've brought something quite amazing to us. You've brought energy I described it as like having a blood transfusion. All of a sudden the place is and exciting with all these people around, and that has been really good. And I know a lot of you have said sort of like thank you to the people who have trained you, but I'm saying back to you, thank you very much indeed for the energy that you've brought to us. And actually you've made us think, you really have. You know, there's things that you've done that I would never have imagined that we'd be doing, and that has been very good. I'm absolutely delighted that so many of you have got jobs with us and are going on to other things as well. I mean, that is just brilliant. I'm so pleased about that. And I'm sure that those of you who haven't got a position yet will now have something that would be great to help you as you go on to try and find jobs in the future. You know, it's a real good thing to have in your CV. But I come back to the thing that I really want to say, and that is that throughout this, I've watched Kaz working away on the project quietly, determinedly, long hours, beating around with the HLF spreadsheets and forms that have to be filled in, beating up managers who haven't sent their forms in, you know who you are, but just trying to make all this pull together. It's immensely important for us because we want to go on to have other Heritage Lottery funding as well. We've just made a big bid for a £4 million project for Boston Lodge, so it really is fingers crossed at the moment. But I know that we've put ourselves in a position to apply for more funding because of what Kaz has done and her professionalism. So I just want, on behalf of all the trainees and the managers, to say a huge thank you, Kaz.
There are messages in the front of it to remember us by.
And it is the obligatory function. Before I sit down is I know that all of the managers and team have put a lot of effort into supporting Kaz. I know you all have, so and that is appreciated. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Emotional there.
Swing
up together.
That looks the waste. Come on, Smith, give it a bit of a...
Only bite on Wednesdays.
Ow! Got it in.
No, that's good.
Cheese.
Cheese.
Sausages. It wouldn't be Paul, can you lie down across the front? Hold you. Definitely Right, you all here now?
Yeah.
I think so.
Control, good afternoon. The second grab train is now on the step platform.
part of the train come down. Can I pass that?
Yeah. No, that's
Through one of the windows.
This one is Garrett number 87. It's having a 10-year boiler retube, and we sent the boiler away to be retubed, and in the meantime we've done some repair work on the cradle because it was showing signs of age, a few fatigue cracks. We've riveted in some new support to make sure it doesn't happen again. We're only doing a small amount of work to the units, and it is a small amount because we want the locomotive operating quite soon. Hopefully it'll be working over Christmas. I'm not making a promise, but we're hoping that it'll work over Christmas. The front water tank has been to Boston Lodge and has been repainted, as has the coal bunker, and the cab is actually been repainted at this moment, I hope. They're supposed to be repainting it. When I go back, I'll double check. It's had a new smoke box. It's funny, even though you get a new part, and ostensibly it should be exactly the same as the one before, it never ever quite works out like that. So having a new smoke box and then all the associated pipe work, fitting in the superheater header, it all takes quite a little bit of jiggling about to make sure that everything goes together correctly. One of the most important parts is, and it's not on it at the moment, it's down there on the floor, is the lining up the chimney with a blast pipe. It only needs to be a little bit out and the engine won't steam very well, and everybody will be pulling their hair out and trying to find out what the problem is, and it might be something as much as just half an inch out of line in a chimney. So actually lining everything up has been quite a laborious job, because we were so determined to get it right. So I think we've reached the stage now where we can move on to putting the superheater elements in. You'll probably see them later. They're on the floor there. They just need a little bit of remedial work before they're fitted. Then follows on the spark arrestor, which is another really difficult, awkward, sodding thing to do, because you have to get it really good and tight, because our railway runs through the national park. It's very close to trees and other areas that are quite important scenically and in every other respect. So we work very hard to make sure we don't throw any sparks out the chimney. And before this one goes into traffic, it will be tested in the dark, just for us to be doubly sure that what we've done is spark tight, so to speak. The same attention is given to the ash pan, where the ash falls down from under the fire. We give that one heck of a lot of attention to make sure again that it doesn't allow any ash to drop on the floor. This time round, after 10 years, it's having a completely new ash pan, which Shane is fabricating in the far corner there. We made some alterations to the design. Hopefully the alterations will mean a little bit less distortion caused by the heat. We're putting in hopefully a more effective drench system so that we can keep the ash wet, and we've also putting in what we call clinker control steam, which means there is a slight flow of steam comes in under the fire grate above the ash, which theoretically prevents the formation of clinker. We've already used it on 2 locos this last year and a half, and it's been very effective to date. We're hoping that what we fit on this one will be even better. I've already mentioned the ash pan. This is the basic frame that bolts on to the foundation ring, and there we have the actual pans that will hold the ash. I think I did say that we modified the design. One of the lads here has come up with a suggestion, so if it doesn't work, we'll give him a good hiding. He's laughing now, but it's damn serious. So yeah, we think this might well be easier for the firemen to ash out. Hope so anyway. So we'll put this one on 87, and we'll do another one to go on the other garage we're rebuilding, 130. So a lot of what we're doing on 87 now, we're replicating on 130. We've altered the engine in some parts in that the rear unit, power unit, was steam braked and the front unit was vacuum braked. So we've now converted it to all vacuum brake, which makes it standard with all the other engines that we have. Whilst the steam and vacuum brake was quite effective, it seemed to require more maintenance than the other engines needed. It was always needing attention. So the work of converting it has been going on. We fabricated all the parts here. We've got very little left to do now. One of the things was that this one had a handbrake working in the cab, whereas the others have a handbrake and a screw down to the other side of the frame. So we've had to make all those parts new. All the parts are done and it's just a matter of putting it back together now. And there's some extra pipe work on the side of the boiler. This is the cladding which goes over the insulation. We've just started some of the insulation work. This is the cladding that was on it from when we first rebuilt it 10 years ago, and it's in good order, and we're using it again. And similarly, the cladding sheets are all in a good state, so they've been to Boston Lodge and been repainted. They're ready to go on, and once they are on, the painters from Boston Lodge will come and gloss it over and make it all look pretty and shiny, and everybody thinks, ah, wonderful. The cab is just, I said earlier, it's getting painted. Once that's the cladding's done and the cab's on, then the work of putting on all the gauges, all the brake handles and all the various little odds and sods that go to make you control the engine will be put in the cab. So in many ways we're well advanced with this one. Some of the steam pipes we found, they were there when it came to us, and it's been used for 10 years. But when we started to examine them here and there, particularly on bends, you'd have a little bit of erosion and little pinholes, which is as good as telling you, I've reached the end now, I want to exchange. So we've had to bend a few 4.5 outside diameter pipes to go under the engine. Otherwise, all we'd be doing, if we patched it, then all we're doing is putting off a job. So we've got a policy of, if it's starting to show signs of distress, then just change it, because this has got to work for another 10 years without, well, reasonably trouble-free. Then Lincoln steam engines are never actually consistently trouble-free, but the more we do now to reduce the chances of something going wrong, then the better for all of us. We reworked the reverser. We made some modifications to it to make it better for us, to take away the backlash and things, and we've put in a method whereby we can compensate for the backlash to accommodate the wear, so that we only need to tweak every now and again, and it should stay in a much more solid state than before. They used to be subject to quite a lot of wear. The cab floor is all new. All had to be replaced. It's actually quite surprising how it had deteriorated in 10 years from when it was first put together. So all that's new with a few little changes. These are the cladding sheets for 87. As you can see, they're just ready to fit and waiting for the gloss coat. That sounds actually very easy, doesn't it? Ready to fit and waiting for the gloss coat. But it is quite a bit of work, and it does take quite a lot of care because you want an end product that the public will think is, wow, this is wonderful. And also there's pride in your work. You know, you do want it to be as best as you can make it. You'll see handrail rods, parts for the cow catcher to go on the front. yet to be fabricated. The superheater elements, they need, I think I did mention earlier, they need a little bit of attention, and then they'll be back in. That's not such a big job. This is 130, our other big garage project. As you can see, it's in virtually the same state as 87, but the rear unit is complete. The bunker is in Boston Lodge, and it's just about to be painted when the cab of 87 is finished. So that'll be done. That ends, we can almost tick a box and say that end's done. The front unit has got a little bit of work to do on it. It's not a massive amount. We're just waiting for Hugh now as he walks away, hiding. And again, the water tank is in Boston Lodge, been sandblasted, undercoated, and it's ready for painting. Hugh, this has been sandblasted to get rid of the mill scale, etc. But when you get a sort of brand new thing, there's no, you've got to make sure that all the fittings fit. You've got to put the holes in for the fittings. The valve rods come off the manifold into the cab through that very nice cab plate. But you've got to make sure that everything lines up. So it's actually quite a feat to get it all to fit in the right place, in the right order. So it takes a little bit of care. It's the same as putting in the driver's brake valve. That has to line up with the outside, the steam valves and things. The vacuum ejector and everything else, you have to have them there so you can get your pipe work. So it takes quite a lot of thought and attention to detail to get it right, because you only get one chance really. Once you drill the hole, oh dear, it's never the same after that. You can try and weld it up and hide it, but it never does go. So it's worth the attention it's getting, but it's really making progress now. And when you get your camera, you can go and have a look in and see where we trial fitted the gauges, and I mean none of that was there just a few weeks ago. So I'm sure that Mr. Best, who owns it, will be very pleased when he comes and he pays us a visit in a few weeks' time. The most important thing in the cab is being trial fitted today, because otherwise it doesn't matter how good or how, if without the driver's seat, the thing is worthless as far as I'm concerned. But they're there and they'll actually look the business. I hope they're the right height. I really hope they're the right height this time. Oh no. A little short ass has bloody put them in, so I can see I'm in trouble now when I am going to be, can't see. Yeah. It's funny, isn't it? We got this thing built in, what was it, 1952, that one 1939, and in front of it there is Prince, the Festiniog's Prince, which is doing some heritage trains from Carnarvon to Gweithdy. Getting a little bit of attention before he goes to work. There's a lot of history in this shed, isn't it? Was that 1863, I think, is it? 1863? Yeah, it is. Yeah. Yeah, well, it's just another steam engine. This is the NG15, another engine from South Africa. It's been worked on for quite a while, mostly by a volunteer team, but lately the work staff have been helping out as well. We've been refurbishing the front and back trucks. This is the back one, and the front one is just further along there, ready to be fitted. The driving wheel sets have been delivered today after being regaging from the South African 610mm to the Festiniog's, I forgot, 600 or something, I've forgotten. I hope it's right anyway. So it's getting quite a little bit of attention of late, because we want to see the the thing move forward, we want to see it as a rolling chassis, the bottom half done. And this weekend, there's a couple of the lads are coming in to put together the front drawbar, which will, when it's on its wheels, allow us the ability to move it around easier. It's a little bit now of a footprints that we can't do much about. Whatever happens here, we can't move this, and there are occasions when you want to bring in one of the operating garrets just to give them a tweak or something. So hopefully towards Christmas time, I'm promising a lot for Christmas, aren't I? Towards Christmas time, this should be a rolling chassis, everything going well, or certainly early next year. The boiler has already been sent away to be refurbished. I don't actually think that work has started yet, but I'm sure it will in the not too distant future. So it is making progress. It would be nice if the progress was faster, but everything we do, there's some constraints of one thing or another, so we just have to do our best. Yeah, but it'd definitely be nice to see it as a wheeled unit. Yeah, that's about where we are in Dinas, really. Yeah.